Mm. Hey y'all, welcome to the Devon A. Morris Unfiltered Call-In Show. Have a seat. Let's get ready. You have any questions? Come on, call in. Come on to that Discord channel. Do me a favor, get the unfiltered crew some finger snaps. We're ready to get started here. Mondays, 8 p.m. Every single Monday, we're here. I'm excited about it. Are you? Let's get this show started, y'all. The greatest Scrum show on earth. I'll see y'all soon. Enjoy. Boom. Hello, everyone. How you doing? Let's go ahead and clap ourselves on in here. Hopefully, you've had a wonderful start to your Monday. Hopefully, it's been amazing for you. You know what? I feel like another clap just because I just do. Well, anyway, how you doing? My name is Devon Morris. I'm your guide on this journey. You're on the Unfiltered Call-In Show. We talked about Agile, Scrum, entrepreneurship, whatever you want to talk about. I'm good with. So, that being said, how does this show work? It's not a complicated thing, right? I answer your questions. Okay. We talk about a topic and then I answer your questions. So realistically, we'll kind of exchange for the next 5 minutes. Do me a favor. Hey, say hello. Say hello in the chat window for me. Just drop that hello out there. I'll give you a shout out. You just go ahead and drop that in the chat for me, okay? Um, and then once I do shout outs, we have a little bit of introduction. Then we'll talk about our topic. Our topic today is how to run an efficient sprint review. Okay, so we're going to talk about that today. I know people wanted to talk about it last week, so we're dropping that bomb today. Now, once we're done talking about that, when we're absolutely done talking about that, then and only then I open up the floor for you to ask questions. Now, you're welcome to drop your questions in the chat, or you can actually join me on the show. Either way, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. However, please know that people that jump on the show, people that go to the link and jump on the show, they get priority, people. They get priority. If you got something real serious to talk about, it's better to jump on the show because we can have an exchange. It's much better. I love it that way. So, that being said, you know how it goes. So, at about somewhere between 8:25, 8:30, maybe 8:20 to 8:30, that's when we'll go ahead and open up for you to be able to go ahead and jump on the show, ask whatever questions that you want to ask. Now, that being said, for me, everything is great. I'm just doing like Devon always does. I'm just always making it amazing, people. I'm just over here doing things, putting my fingers in a little bit of this and a little bit of that, just so I can have wonderful, wonderful days every day. Hopefully, you're having an amazing start to your week because if you're not, find a reason to smile a day. Just find a reason to smile a day. At least this evening, whatever time zone you're in, find a reason to smile. There's something wonderful and great going on with you and your life, whatever it is. Just find a good reason to smile today. So do me a favor, say hello in the chat, so I can make sure I shout out back to you. Okay. Hey, Chanel. We actually connected recently. So hey, yeah, I was jamming, man. I was really doing my thing, right? I'm over there listening to some Lost Boys, some rap, music makes me high, the remix, with Dog Pound on it, and then amongst some other things, threw some Lil Wayne in there. So it was just that really, really get your hype rap type stuff that I was listening to. So, I was enjoying myself. It was like 90s, 2000s kind of rap is what I was listening to. I had a good time. I had an amazing time by myself, just jamming, just really enjoying myself. So welcome, 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 Chanel. Thank you for dropping in. Hopefully you enjoy the show. Let's see who else we got here. Usual, my guy Patrick. How you doing, brother? Hopefully you're doing all right. I'm good, man. I'm good as usual. I don't have anything. I don't have any. I don't have one single complaint. I'm just around here trying to be good, trying to live a good life, and just trying to find ways to just enjoy every moment of it. Right? Hopefully you're doing the same thing, right? So other than that, I'm good, man. The question is, how are you, Patrick? How are things going for you? How did last week go for you? How did things kind of jump off and start out for you this week? So that'd be amazing to absolutely know. I see Lizzie's here. She's saying hi to everybody else but me. So hey Lizzie, how you doing? We talk today. We talk every day. So that's a good thing. Let's see. Usted. I'm probably saying your name wrong, but welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, welcome, man. Enjoy the show. You have any questions, please drop them in the chat. But make sure you enjoy the show. We got a tight little topic today that we need to jump through. And then I have, yeah, oh, Sharon, I haven't seen you in a while, Sharon. How's it going? Sharon, I remember you got that job. Now you don't talk to nobody no more. You went ahead and got that whole Scrum opportunity. And then you just said, you know what? I'm too big for these Scrum people. I'm just joking with you, Sharon. I love you. I care about you. Hopefully everything's going well for you and your family. Let's see. Hey, how you doing, Addie? How's it going? Hello, 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 hello. I've seen your name before, I do believe. So come on in, enjoy. Just sit back, man. Have a nice little drink. Get yourself a drink. I got me a little drink right here. So we good to go. Just some water, just some water. Hernando, how you doing? West Palm Beach, man. Man, West Palm Beach, man. I like Florida. I really, really do. Weather got to be pretty sweet there right now, man. Weather got where I'm at, it's been 40s, man. 40s, man. I'm gonna get back down to Texas and gonna get back to the regular weather I like to enjoy. But man, I love Florida weather, man. West Palm Beach, love it, man, love it, love it. So hey, how you doing, Hernando? That's amazing. I got to get down to Florida sometime soon myself, man. For real, for real, for real. Let's see. Evelyn, how you doing, Evelyn? Evelyn. Good. Nice to see you, Evelyn. Nice to see you. And let's see. Are you Abby? Okay, I got you. I got you, Abby. We in there. We good to go. You took my class. Thank you for taking my class. This is good. All right, so let's see. Let's see. Good people. Let's jump in here. I got somebody already trying to join the show, but I'll go ahead and answer. But I will say this to anybody that's calling in right now. We will truly not open the floor for people to really join us on the show until about 25 minutes after the hour. Okay? So just know that. So I'll put you in the green room and you're welcome to wait. But just know you can come and just participate in the show just by being on the live. You don't have to come through the link, okay? So, hey, Khadidra, how you doing? Okay. Yeah, hey, this is a good way to spend your evening, right? Come on in, let's do something together. Let's do something together. I love it. I absolutely love it. Makita, how you doing? How's it been going for you? Hopefully you're good. Hopefully life is all right for you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Makita always say to me when she's not showing up, so I find it amazing. I will tell you folks on LinkedIn, I keep having problems pulling LinkedIn in. I don't know why it's a problem, but I've been having these issues where LinkedIn just won't come in on the live because I'm streaming in two different places. So I try my best to stream in both places. But just know, all my LinkedIn people, hey, sometimes it just doesn't work out right for me. And I will go ahead and let's see. Hey, Sabrina, how you doing? My new BCSM. He loves some Sabrina. She's amazing. So that's a good thing, man. So just make sure you get out there and get them opportunities, Sabrina. Yeah, hey, this is the place to do a brain dump, right? I need a brain dump from you, right? The sprints are worrying me. Hey, you got questions, Sharon? Come on, join me on the show. I got you. I got you, right? So that being said, so I appreciate everybody that's here, the people that didn't say anything, the people that did say something. It's nothing but love. And I appreciate every single one of them. I really, really do. I absolutely love y'all. But let's start talking about the topic that we need to talk about, okay? Let me ask you all a question. Well, the topic of the day is not a complicated topic. It's not something that, I mean, most of you all would be quite familiar with this, right? The topic of the day is running an effective and engaging sprint review. Running, and I spelled engaging wrong when I put it out there, but it's okay. But running a effective and engaging sprint review. Okay. So here's a question I want to ask every single person here, and I need you to just drop an answer in the chat. Okay. Nothing special. Just drop an answer in the chat. Tell me some of the things that you see that don't quite go right with retrospectives that you've been involved in or that you've seen. Just drop some of those answers in the chat, right? So you've likely experienced some retrospectives, okay? And with those retrospectives that you've experienced, tell me some of the things that have kind of gone wrong. in those retrospectives? Tell me some, just some bad stuff that has happened, right? Bad practices that happen, right? They might be what we call bad smells, right? Just what are some of those things that have happened in terms of the actual reviews that you've seen? A lot of times when I walk on site, going to client, I'm telling you, they're missing a sprint review and a sprint retro. I mean, the retro more than a review, but they're definitely missing sprint reviews for many, many reasons. And here's the deal. I want to make sure I'm clear with this, right? I want you all to separate the sprint review from the sprint retrospective. A lot of times we like to call a review a sprint demo, okay, just to make sure that they're separate, right? The sprint retrospective is like lessons learned for the sprint, right? But let's keep those two things very separate. I am only talking about one particular thing, and that's the sprint review, okay? So when you think about the sprint review, right? The sprint review is what we're talking about here, right? So don't get them confused. I am only talking about the sprint review. Okay. I don't know if I said retro earlier. Hopefully I didn't, right? But I want you to separate the sprint retro from the sprint review. Take the sprint retro, put it in your pocket, and we can talk about that next week for all I care. We are only talking about the sprint review. So keep that sprint review in mind, sometimes called the sprint demo. So don't confuse them because they are two separate events with two separate audiences. And those audiences are different, okay? The meetings serve very different purposes. So the question is for the sprint review, what are some of the problems that you see that classically happens for the sprint review? Okay. In terms of the ones that you've seen, period, the ones that you've experienced, drop some of those in the chat. It can be smells, they can be bad practices you've seen. It could be the simple fact that you're not having them, but what's the reason why you're not having them becomes my question. So just drop some of those things in the chat. Now, I'll say some reasons that I've classically run into, okay, as you all type some things in the chat. Probably the most recent reason that I have gotten is that the sprint review doesn't provide any value for the product owner. Now, that's already wrong. Understand the statement. My statement to you is when somebody says the sprint review doesn't provide value for the product owner, something's already wrong with that. Okay. But that's the most recent reason that I received in terms of me being on the ground and going inside of organizations and having those conversations. Okay. And so there's reasons behind that when you dive into it, right? They don't have anything to show, for example, in the sprint review, okay? Because everything that they did, just is not showable to any users, any stakeholders, or even the product owner, for all I know, right? So there are reasons why these things happen, right? But I want to make sure we hit the basics and understand that sprint review. And I'm probably going to go through it and show you a couple of items to make sure we're on the same page about it, and then we can go from there. So let me take a look at what some of the people have said right here, okay? Disorganized, not prepared, okay? That is definitely a concern. Okay. I see slow responses from devs. That's a concern, right? Because it's like you got a definition of done. We should be meeting our definition of done. Everything shouldn't probably be finished on the very last day. Let's see. No stakeholders present to give feedback. That's definitely a concern. Definitely a concern. I could see missing one or two of those things, but consistently happening, that's a problem. Not having it because the deliverables are too technical and there's nothing to demo. That's the one I just talked about. Literally, that is truly a problem that happens consistently, consistently, consistently. No UI, yeah, all that back end stuff being done right. This points back toward how your user stories are, right? The developers show a list of Jira tickets. Yeah, I get it. That don't mean anything, right? Because a big part of sprint review is actually a demonstration, right? Let's see. Team wanting to bring slides instead of the actual features added. A presentation can happen. I understand that, but if that's the only thing you're doing, I'm concerned. Not discussing incomplete work and the reason why they weren't incomplete. If you're discussing incomplete work, you're actually having a retro. So you probably shouldn't be doing that because you're going to be trying to solve you're going to try to figure out how you're going to get better is the problem, right? So that's good. Hey, that's good. So thank you all for all those comments. Let's do ourselves a big favor, right? Let's talk about what a sprint review is, and then we can get into the nuances of it, okay? So let me go ahead and show you all something just to kind of make our lives easy so you don't have to deal with my horrific handwriting, okay? Just take a look here, right? This is the information that I present in the Certified Scrum Master. This is based on the Scrum Guide, but the sprint review meeting is inspecting the outcome of the sprint. What is the outcome of the sprint? The outcome of the sprint is this thing called the increment. Is this thing called the increment? Okay, that's the outcome of the sprint. Okay, now what is the increment? The increment is the sum of all completed work. Okay, so now what we're inspecting is the increment, and we're determining future adaptations for that increment. So it's important for you to know and to understand that. Now, when does the sprint review happen? It happens at the end of the sprint. It's really the next to last event that we're classically going to have on average. Now, the end of the sprint could be the very last day of the sprint, or it can be just the last day available that we have time to actually meet. So it happens toward the end of the sprint is what I want to really put out there to you. How long is that sprint review? It's a max of 4 hours for a calendar month sprint. For a calendar month sprint. So when you got that max sprint length, you're talking about you can spend a max time box, the time box being the maximum duration of time of 4 hours. Now, obviously, if you're doing a 2 week sprint, you would cut this in half. It would be about 2 hours at that point. And for a 2 week sprint, for me, my team spend maybe 30 minutes to an hour in a sprint review. Now, who should be involved here? Who should be there? The product owner should be there, obviously. The dev should be there, obviously. And the scrum master should be there. Those three roles should be there. But I want to say something really, really important about these three roles right here, okay? These three roles are fundamentally called the scrum team. All three of them. They're called the scrum team. Okay, and that's important for me to tell you that right now. These three roles together are called the Scrum team. So the Scrum team and stakeholders should be there. Okay, now stakeholders are anyone that has interest. So you should have the Scrum team and stakeholders there. Now, what is your input? The product results of the sprint. The product results is the increment, the sum of all completed work. So we should not be showing anything that was incomplete. Does that make sense? So nothing that is incomplete should be shown whatsoever. We should not be having any conversations around anything that's incomplete. So that stuff should not be shown. The increment is the sum of all completed work. So let's make sure we got that real clear. Now, what is our output in terms of the sprint review? Product feedback is our output. So really, new product backlog items is what we're talking about here. Okay, so literally, that's all we're really doing. Okay, that's really the anatomy of this thing, right? But here's the deal. Here's what should be happening there. The Scrum team, note, now I'm saying the Scrum team presents the results to the stakeholders. Now, I told you earlier that the product owner is included in the Scrum team. The Scrum Master is included in the Scrum team. And the devs are included in the Scrum team. So when I hear the words that the devs are presenting to the PO, that makes no sense to me because the Scrum team presents the results to the stakeholders. Okay. Now, what is that presentation classically called? A demonstration. It's going to be a demonstration of some kind. So you'll find that people will classically call the sprint review a sprint demo, because those results that are being presented are the results that are being demonstrated. Now, they're being demonstrated to obviously the stakeholders. Now, here's the stakeholders' job. The stakeholders review what was accomplished. See that word again? Accomplished. And they provide feedback. Okay? So realistically, if I was to say to you, the main purpose of the review here is to demo what was accomplished and get feedback on what was accomplished. Now, this is product feedback. So you're demonstrating and you're getting product feedback. Those are the two primary things that are really happening here. Now, here's the deal. Everyone collaborates on what's next and adjusts the product backlog accordingly. Now, obviously, the product owner owns the product backlog, and we operate in that situation as best that we can. Then, last but not least, keep this as a working session. The more informal you can keep it, the better. It's going to turn out way, way better for you at the end. So now when you really just peel that back and you think about what we're talking about here, we're not saying anything really crazy here or anything that should be surprising you, right? You should be used to the fact that you're demonstrating functionality. This is probably one of the main things that happen here, right? And that demonstration can range from a presentation all the way to a test drive where people actually got their hands on it and they're playing with it, right? But you're classically going to see a demonstration. That's the Scrum team presenting the results to the actual stakeholders. Now, also, you can talk about other things here, right? You can actually talk about the timeline, the releases. You can talk about updates to the product backlog. You can talk about budget, what you plan versus actual. You can even talk about things that are happening in the marketplace, right? Because here's the deal. When you're in that sprint review, you might have the right stakeholders in a room for you to have the right kind of conversation, for you to make the right kind of decisions for you moving forward in terms of that product backlog, in terms of how the team is going to move forward. So realistically, it's a great opportunity to have, talk about various things when you got the right people in the room. So you got an opportunity to do that here. And if you can do it, I would say take advantage of it. So this is very important, understanding what happens here. Now, here's the deal. When you think about what's happening in terms of this, in terms of it, what could possibly happen? What could be some of the possible outcomes? You can end up with new product backlog items, which is likely going to be what's going to happen 99% of the time, right? 99% of the time, you're going to have new product backlog items that come out from nowhere. But we can start making decisions like, this thing is ready for us to release, right? Or we're not going to do any further development on this. Or even the product could end up being rejected because we look at it and realize it's really not going in the direction that we wanted to go in, or the market has beat us someplace, and we might want to take care of that way. So it's really completely up to us in terms of what we do. But we take advantage of that at that particular time. We take advantage of that because it makes sense for us to take advantage of it. It makes complete sense for us to do that, and we have the right parties in the room. This is extremely important. So now when you think about that sprint review, it really is a primary focus on taking a look at that product, talking about that product, and getting feedback on that product. Does that make sense? That's what we're really doing, right? That's what we're doing more than anything else. So if you really just take a step back, that's your primary focus. It doesn't go beyond that. So you go back to the very beginning of this thing. Let me kind of really come back at you from the very beginning, okay? Remember, this is the Scrum team right here. Let me get rid of some of these colors here, right? This is the Scrum team. I'm going to just do this in green. That's the Scrum team. The Scrum team presents. The Scrum team presents to the actual stakeholders. Okay? It's very important for you to understand that distinction. Now, the statement is, do you do your sprint reviews that way? Right? When you look at this, what am I missing here, people? Because this is all the sprint review is. It is nothing more than that. It is not the same as the retro, because the retro is about getting process feedback. It shouldn't happen at the same time as the retro because you're inviting stakeholders in the room. Stakeholders coming in the room means you throw everything off, right? Especially if you're talking about how you're going to improve the process related stuff. So it's a very different thing to do this sprint review. And if you're not having sprint reviews, there could be many reasons for it. And people listed out a slew of reasons for it. The most recent reason I got is people not having things that can actually be shown. And that's a very common one because they don't write the stories right, or they don't break them down in the right way, or they work in silos in the organization, so they don't have a front end, to their back end. Whatever that is, right, it is what it is, right? But the idea The idea, plain and simple, is that sprint review is something that you want to take advantage of. You want to take advantage of. And the real key is two things: an actual demonstration of what's been accomplished and feedback on what's been demonstrated. If you can do these two things and you mess up on everything else, you're okay, right? Because getting that feedback is on the product. That product feedback would likely change and start to evolve your product backlog, because your product backlog will be evolved by the feedback that stakeholders are providing. So this is extremely important. Okay. So did I miss something here, people? But that's the basics of what you should be doing. Now, if you do this, you make sure you have an agenda, right? You make sure it doesn't matter who you decide to present, but it's the Scrum team as a whole that's presenting. If you really think back and think through this, then you will be in a good position with your reviews where you're actually getting really solid feedback, where you're getting really solid feedback. So that's it in terms of review. I love sprint reviews. I find them to be extremely valuable. It's one of my favorite things to have. There's certain things that I do in a sprint review that I'm comfortable with. I wouldn't want to just say those things to you because I think that you should figure out what's best for your team to do. But we all get into a natural rhythm in terms of how we do things. And as long as you find a natural rhythm for your team, it's fine as long as you're doing two things: demonstrating what's been accomplished and and getting feedback on what's been accomplished. If you're doing these two things, then you're good. You're really, really good at that point, right? Anything else? I don't understand what you're doing, right? And not having them means you're taking away some transparency. Understand that Scrum is all about transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Transparency, inspection, adaptation. When you're not showing that product to the user, to the stakeholders, right? Then guess what you're not getting? You're not getting feedback on that product, right? And for a lot of us knowledge workers, um, our customers don't really know what they want until you put something in their hands. And if that's a situation that you have, that means that even the requirements change. Well, this is an opportunity to get feedback on something that you built, because I have always found that you put something in someone's hands, they normally can give you feedback on the thing that you put in their hand. It's hard for them to think about things that haven't been written, that haven't been shown to them, even if you're just writing the words of a requirement down. But when you actually show it to them, it usually means something very, very different. So that being said, that's what I want to tell you in terms of a sprint review. The big question I have for you is, what kind of questions do you all have? What kind of questions do you all have? I'm going to go ahead and begin the process of opening up the actual green room for you to join me on the show. And anybody's welcome to join me. Most of you all probably have over time received this wonderful and great link right here. It's the same link that I pass out normally. So I'm passing that link out once again to everyone. I'm doing that as we speak right now to make sure that everybody has it. I dropped it for my folks on LinkedIn, so you can jump in first. And for my peeps that's here on YouTube, I'm going to go ahead and drop it for you right now. So then you got it as well, okay? So realistically, if you want to join the show, the link is right there for you to join the show. Now, I would love to answer any of your questions about the sprint review first and foremost. So if you have questions about the sprint review, drop them in the chat or come and join me on the show. Now, if you don't have any questions about that and you have questions about something different than that, please drop those questions in the chat as well. Again, I don't mind going back and forth, but I would love to stay on topic tonight. So, and then we can answer as many questions as people have about things related to the sprint review. So, that being said, the room is open. The green room is open. You're welcome to come join, and you're welcome to go ahead and start dropping your questions in terms of the actual chat. So, chat on LinkedIn, chat here, whatever it is, drop them there. So, I will repeat to you once again, I absolutely love sprint reviews. I love the fact that they give at least the developers an opportunity to really see the users interact with whatever it is that we build. Because a lot of times your developers don't get the opportunity to do that or to see that, because a lot of the developers have never used the product. And since they've never used the product, you just run into a problem. You run into a real huge problem. It makes it a little bit harder for them to develop. It makes it harder for them to get it right the first time because it's hard for them to put themselves in the shoes of the user. So, I find the sprint reviews to be extremely valuable, to be extremely valuable. So this is super critical and super duper important. So don't, if you can, by all means, if you're skipping them now, find out why you're skipping them. Find out the reason why you're not having them. If the stakeholders don't want to come, find out why they don't want to come, right? There must be a reason why they don't want to come, right? Because most users really like to see their product being produced, right? Really do. And if you have stakeholders that aren't interested, my question is your product really valuable to them? Because most people, if it's valuable to them, they'll show up, right? They really will show up. If it's not that valuable to them, they may not show up at all. So I would question the amount of value that's being presented in terms of that. So you want to make sure that you investigate if you see reasons why. These are smells, and you want to go find those smells. A smell could mean a problem, but a smell doesn't necessarily mean a problem. So if you catch a smell, it's worthy of investigation, right? It really truly is worthy of investigation. Not blame, not that you got to fix a problem, but that you need to investigate to see what is at the root of whatever's happening. So you want to make sure you do a little bit of that, okay? I'm gonna have to start because I don't like to advertise for people. So I'm gonna have to start taking my things that I utilize and put them in very blank containers because that's just what I do, right? So that being said, good topic. Somebody asked about this last week, right? Sprint review. So I think maybe the next thing we can talk about is the anatomy of the sprint retrospective, how to run a sprint, an effective sprint retro, right? Might be a good place for us to start and get at that one too. So maybe that'll be our topic for next week. But yeah, 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 the sprint review thing is a huge thing. I've run into all kinds of problems with the sprint review, but I'm curious as to what are your problems and what questions you have. Whatever questions you have, whatever problems you have, drop it in the chat. Let's talk about them. Let's figure out how to make your world a little bit better. I want to make your day a little brighter, your load a little lighter. That's what I want to do, right? So this is definitely a really, really good thing, you know. Um, and just it just is pluses, right? Let's see. Let me count. Let me jump here right to Abby. Does the demo count only if it is in prod, real world environment, or any lower environment works as long as it is not a PowerPoint presentation? Okay, now I'm going to say this to you, right? Okay, so I want you to just take a step back for a minute and let's talk about something that's really important for you to understand, and that is your definition of done. Okay, you should be able to demonstrate up to where your definition of done is at, up to where that stops at. Whatever environment that is, that's what you have available, right? And so, what you need to think, Abby, is about your definition of done and how far you go down the life cycle. Lots of teams on the planet do not put their stuff in prod until they've gone through some staging, some acceptance, some other things, right? And so when you really peel the onion back, does that mean that you can demonstrate from a integration environment or system environment? You could. A lower environment can work for you, but that's based on your definition of done, okay? So don't think that it doesn't count because it's not in production. That's not the way Scrum says things are, right? Teams have dones and done-dones, right? And done-dones, for all I know, right? But that first done is based on the team's skills. And as far as they can take it is as far as they can take it. And you can demonstrate from that. Now, I will say this to you. A PowerPoint presentation is okay. That might be all you can do. The stuff that they may have built, you may not have any other way to present it other than a PowerPoint presentation. Okay? So it becomes one of those things that if you are having PowerPoint presentations now, I would be asking, is there a way for us to move beyond PowerPoint to something that is more interactive? I'm not saying that where they're putting their hands on it and playing with it, but something that's beyond the PowerPoint, right? Could you actually do that? And just start working that into the improvements that you have from sprint to sprint to sprint. Because when you get into your retro, let's talk about why we can't do anything beyond a presentation and come up with some action items, actionable action items and steps that you can take it up a notch, to take it up to another level where it goes beyond that presentation. So there's nothing wrong with a presentation because sometimes that's all the team can really do. But is that the same way you want to be after sprint number 30? No, no. After sprint number 30, no. Like you're on sprint number one and you've gone through 30 sprints and you haven't worked on improving that. There could be a reason why you can't, right? Yeah, it could be a legitimate reason. But if I'm you, I would investigate that. Okay. So hopefully that helps out, Abby. That's a really amazing question because there's nothing in Scrum that says that it has to be, that it really, really has to be something that is in a production environment. I have had many, many Lizzie is on here. When I worked with Lizzie back in the day, and I was her coach. We didn't have the rights to put something in prod. We just didn't, right? And when I was working with that initial team, and this was like in '08, seriously, we had a whole system testing runway. And so we can only take it as far as, and folks, I'm talking about IT here, right? We can only go as far up to being ready for system testing. But did we not have sprint reviews? We still did. We was able to show in the environment that was ready for system testing what we actually accomplished to the powers that be. And excuse me, and that was good enough, right? That was truly good enough. So you want to be able to understand your environments, how far you can go, their skill set, all that stuff is important. But it doesn't. If we said would have to be in prod, there'll be way more teams that don't have sprint reviews. Like literally, it would be a whole lot, right? That's not the case. There's nothing that says you have to take it all the way there. Sometimes it's just not feasible. Sometimes it might be reasons that you just don't want to do it because the quality isn't there for you to go and just put things in prod. Every single organization is not doing continuous integration and continuous delivery. That's just not the case, right? So when you know that to be the case, you just got to figure out how far can you go down that life cycle and then just take it as far as you can and show from that place. And that should be good enough. But yeah, don't stomp on the team because they can only show a presentation right now. That's counterproductive. Make sure that you work with them on going beyond a presentation for the future. But that don't mean that's happening overnight either. So, it just be reasonable is my point, right? Be reasonable. We got an ideal place of what we're dreaming of being. Just use that as your North Star. Use that as your place where you want to improve until you get there. But take steps to get there. Most of these things do not happen overnight, so don't think that they happen overnight, Abby, okay? So be just cool, calm, and collected about it is what I would say to you. And it's okay to be in a lower environment to have a sprint demo. Seriously, it really is. I have, the majority of sprint demos for me have been that way, have been exactly that way. Okay. So I get it. We're on that same page. So thank you. Thank you, Abby. Um, girl Sharon, how you doing there? Let's see. The developers are late to having the deliverables. Well, they're late to having deliverables. This is a big issue. Maybe because we are using 3 week sprints now. Okay. Okay. So, you know, I'm, you know, here's the question, right? Um, I need you to think about this. Okay. Okay. The sprint length is likely not the problem. Okay. I know Patrick says here, Parkinson's law, we could talk about that later, but the danger increasing the duration, Parkinson's law, I agree with that, right? But here's the deal. Let's put all that to the side for a moment, right? Okay. What you are saying to me is this, and correct me if I'm wrong. The developers are late or the developers are not delivering the commitments that have been made. That's what I understand this to mean. So they're not getting those commitments done within the time frame that we have talked about. Okay. Now, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. And tell me if you have an answer to this, Sharon, because I'm gonna throw this out there real quick. So drop the answer in the chat if you have some thoughts on this, right? Have you talked about this with them in the retrospective? Like not in a blame way. Literally not in a blame way. Literally, what is the reasons why we are committing to work and not getting that work done? Okay? Now, again, just have that conversation with them. And a good place to have that conversation is in the retro. Okay? Now, what you're likely going to hear is about things that are preventing them from getting things done. It could be interruptions of some kind. It could be that they're committing to stories that are too big or not clear enough. So, here's something that could help in that situation. Create a definition of ready. Okay? What I want you to include in that definition of ready is a couple of two things to include in that definition of ready. I have a video about the definition of ready that you all can go grab and take a look at, right? But two things that I would say I talked about in that video, okay? One of those things is external dependencies. I find that a lot of teams can't complete what they have committed to in a sprint because there are dependencies that are outside of their control. So, if you had a definition of ready, I would have a definition of ready that would state that we would not commit to anything unless there is no external dependency on it or that external dependency has been resolved. Now, if you actually made a commitment to items with no external dependencies and that has been solved, that means that when they pick an item that's small enough to be completed in the sprint, there's nothing preventing them from getting it done. Okay? Now, here's another thing, right? Another thing that's important to understand. They're likely committing to things that are too big. So, if I'm you, I would make sure that we follow the invest criteria. You know, independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, sizable, small enough to be completed in a single sprint and testable. Okay? Now, invest would be in my definition of ready. Now, why is that? Because first and foremost, the story should be small enough to be completed in a single sprint. Okay? Now, if it's small enough to be completed in a single sprint, that gives them the opportunity to finish that work, right? Okay? Great. And then if it has the right acceptance criteria, like it's testable, but it's also negotiable where you can accommodate things, then that gives you some flexibility. Because if it's negotiable, there could be a piece of acceptance criteria you might pull out. If it is testable, that means you do have acceptance criteria from the perspective of the user that could actually benefit you. If you added that to your definition of ready, that means when a story comes in, it's meeting the invest criteria. Okay? It's absolutely meeting the invest criteria. Now, once they get into these things and they're learning, right? One of the things I think you're saying here as a comment, I think we have had too many stories. I asked for a split to avoid late work, but you should split before the work starts. You know, if you're using estimation, for example, and they can't get eights done, then make sure that before the work comes in, you're splitting things down to fives or less. Does that make sense? Because to say that they're committing to too many stories is an interesting thing. Why are they committing to too many stories is the real question. So I'll say this to you, Sharon, as an example. I remember for a client that I work with, I had a team who committed to double the amount of stories that they can get accomplished. How did I know this? Because We knew their capacity was 250 hours, but they always committed to 500 hours worth of work. Well, guess what? They got too much of anything. They're not going to get everything done, is the fact, right? And so maybe you need to start thinking about using things like capacity as a way to measure things, as a way to understand, hey, how much time do you really have available? Yeah, let's take out certain things, right? Then what I want you to also think about is when they're making a commitment in sprint planning, kind of do a 60-40 split. 60% of our time is dedicated towards working a sprint. 40% of our time is dedicated toward unknowns. Okay? By doing these things is going to help you. But before you do any of the stuff, really have a retrospective and have a conversation with the team. Talk to them about why they're not getting things done, and then come up with some actionable things that can be done that they agree to, that hopefully they have even come up with, that you can utilize to just make things good, right? To make things really, really good. If you do that, that would be amazing, right? I think that would help. I think that would help you tremendously if you just took a little bit of time and worked through that with them, right? And you'll see that go down piece by piece. Normally, developers have a good get gut feel about what they can do. Is normally other things that happen and start to have an impact on them, right? Um, Patrick says the review stories will help you estimate better, but may not really be a split, right? So yeah, estimation can actually truly help you, but I don't think you have a real splitting issue, right? I don't think it's a splitting issue. Um, it just massively just mean be they committing to too much work, or it could be that it's too many unknowns in that story. So you got to just get to a place where it makes sense. But forget anything I'm talking about. Ask your team, literally ask your team, right? And so okay, I'm glad that makes sense. That's first thing, and the second thing, you think capacity conversion or conversation will help. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sometimes getting to the true basics is the best you can do. And realistically, if you have 10 hours available and you got 20 hours worth of work, something's not right. Something's not going to get done. So you may want to just, when you're in sprint plan, and double check their capacity. And sometimes what I do, Sharon, is I'll really sit down with the team in the beginning, and if I have to, every single person, let's talk about your capacity. Are you taking any days off? Is it this, is that? Okay, let's take that capacity and let's chop 20% off of it. Okay. Now make a commitment based on this 80% or this 60% or this 70% that you have available, minus these other commitments that you have, right? And so we get down to the brass tacks of dealing with capacity. And sometimes having that conversation one time, you don't even have to have the conversation more than one time. Have the conversation one time. And I guarantee you, once you have it with them one time about capacity, they'll understand, roughly what they think roughly what they can do. As Patrick says, a good target is 70 to 80%. Man, I go down as far as 60%. If my team is really, 60% of their capacity, I'll go down to that if I have to. Why? Because it just makes sense. It makes sense, right? Figure out what right number makes sense for you and utilize that number. So it's really, really important for you to really take some time and work with them through it. Normally, it's some real easy answers on why they're having a real problems, and you can get at those through a retrospective. Okay, you really can. So that being said, other questions that people have, other questions. These were amazing questions. All of them, both questions were really amazing. Any other questions from anyone else? Please drop it in the chat, or you're welcome to join us on the show. We got about 10 minutes to go here, so talk to me. What other questions do you have as I quench my parched throat? Ah, water's amazing, man. Just gotta love water. Water's amazing. I mean, we made up of water, right? But it's always amazing. I love water for for every ounce of the water's worth. I love it. Okay, so other questions. Let's see. I don't see any other questions being dropped in the chat. I actually enjoyed this. I really did enjoy this actual sprint review topic. I don't think I've ever talked about sprint review solidly on the show. I probably need to go ahead and run through Scrum on the show one time. So we talk about all the elements of Scrum based on a 2020 Scrum guide. I think I need to do that. Like Scrum 101, right? Scrum 101, Scrum 100, whatever, just a lower level, college class, right? On the entire Scrum cycle, might be what we need to do. And that, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. Um, because people get confused about Scrum for some strange reason. And there's nothing really to be confused about. It's really a very simple thing, right? But I think we're gonna have to talk about that. I really do. Just almost like a baseline in the show. So if you're interested in a topic like that, just let me know. A matter of fact, I ask you all as you're thinking here, what, what are the questions do you have, and what other topics would you like to cover on the show? Right? Because I don't see any more questions. So, what other topics would you like to cover? So, I see Lizzie is actually doing a mini con event, Agile mini con, not minion, mini con, April 14th. I don't know what your topic is, Lizzie, but drop the topic in the chat that you're going to be talking about. So, at the Agile mini con, April 14th, I should be doing more stuff on all that. Um, Update: I have not, I have not come up with a new date for the bankable event. So remember, I told you all it was going to be this upcoming weekend. I and I don't like to lie to you all. I'm super transparent. With doing my PhD stuff, and getting back into classes, and with doing client work, my time's been like I've had no time, no time at all. So I will have more information about the event next week because I'm gonna pick a date a little bit further out, and then be able to stick to that date based on some other things I need to do. So just trust me, that bankable event is coming. Um, I don't know why I want to call it bankable. I love the word bankable. Why do I like the word bankable? Because I think you should be able to use your skills to make money. Just that simple. I've been a consultant for many years, and the main reason why I've been a consultant and I don't care about titles is because I want to be bankable. I want to make sure that my skills earn me money. Um, I don't know, maybe that's not you, but you know, I don't want to be the president of some company making less money than a consultant. Like literally, I do not want to be the president of a company making less money than a consultant. I'm just being real with you, right? Or be vice president or whatever it is, making more money than a consultant, right? I'm serious about that for real. And the journeys I've been in have told me that, mm, I want to be bankable. That's what my journeys have told me, and that's the way my journeys have always been. Okay, well, there you go. So you all know Lizzie is keynoting at the Agile Alliance Sprint Mini Con. So yeah, definitely go register for that event. Next week, if you give me the information about it, Lizzie, I'll throw it up on and throw up a graphic or something next week so that people can see it. Because that'd be the easiest way to do it. So then it's presented to people. Let's see. Any more questions, y'all? Any more questions about anything whatsoever? Any more questions about anything? Yeah, no, I've been had, as you can tell, I have fun. So that any questions about anything, right? Let's see. Is the best practice to have a general DOD and DOR for all accomplished work, or could it be different categories and definitions depending on deliverables? What do you mean by deliverables? Okay. Um, your definition of done is going to be based on what it takes to build whatever it is you're trying to build, right? So if you're doing software development, your definition of done is based on the activities that it takes to build software. If you're at the same time, you actually have a training manual that you're producing that will go out with this software. That doesn't have the same definition of done as software because it doesn't go through the same creation life cycle. So that being said, you would have to have a different definition of done for building training materials. If you are also doing what I'm going to call configurations. Configurations classically isn't software development, or it isn't training either. So you probably will have a different definition of done for that as well. That could also mean that your definition of readies could be different for each one of those types of work. So realistically, your DoD and DO and likely your DOR will be impacted by the type of work that you're attempting to deliver. Does that make sense, Abby? So don't think of it as being, there's these categories of accomplished things or deliverables because a deliverable could be release one and release two. But if both release one and release two is software development and that's it, then it's the same definition of done based on the skill, unless the skills changed amongst the team. So literally, your DoD is purely based on the skills of the developers. You got to think to yourself. You go through a process. You was a part of my class, Abby, right? What's that process, right? Come up with a DoD. Nothing really complicated about that process, right? Um, the first thing you got to do is brainstorm the activities that it takes to get the work done. The next thing you got to do is sort and consolidate those activities. And then last but not least, you reach a consensus on what the developers can do to get it done. That's it. That's all you're really doing. So it's really just three little steps that you take in order to come up with a DOD. But that DOD would only be different if the type of work changes or the skills of the developers change, or something else crazy happens, like management dictates that, hey, nobody can do this kind of work. We only got this special group over here that's going to do that kind of work. That could have an impact on your DoD as well. So realistically, anytime something like that impacts you, you should have conversations and try to figure it out. But at the end of the day, your DoD is going to be based on a type of work that you're delivering, purely based on that type of work. So for this team whose skills hasn't changed, um, their DoD shouldn't change for that type of work. Okay, so don't make it a complicated thing. You only have one DoD, one definition done per team for one type of work. If you had a different type of work, then you might have two. So don't get it confused. Don't make it hard for yourself. It's not at different levels. There's no DoD for a sprint. There's no DoD for a release. There's no for a story. It's really based on what it takes to build it. So that might have to be a topic that we talk about, seriously. Okay. So hopefully that helps you out. It sounds like you got it. That's a good thing. So good. I'm glad you got it. Okay, everybody. I think we can start to wrap things up. Okay. Because we're coming to our end term. Let me ask you a question. What would you all like to talk about next week? Drop it in the chat for me. You know, I sometimes come up with list of topics I want to talk about from week to week to week. I don't sit up here and talk about all the stuff that's happening in the news, so I don't run off of news cycles. But what are you interested in talking about right here in this program so we can get at that topic and make sure you're good to go? So let me know by dropping your thoughts in the chat on what you think we should talk about next, whatever that is. Doesn't matter to me, but we're talking about agile stuff. So whatever that agile stuff is, I'd love to hear you talk to me about it and tell me what you want to talk about in the next week. Next week, the weeks after. Completely up to you. I'm good with whatever. Okay? So drop that in the chat for me. I love it. I love it. I love it. I am going to say to you, I have enjoyed this. I usually enjoy this. Man, I always enjoy this, as you know. Okay. Yeah, chat GPT would be a very interesting topic. I have to think about that for a future one, right? Chat GPT, right? It's definitely shaking up the world for real. So yeah, so thank you, Patrick. I'm glad you enjoyed the session. Pestra, always like seeing you here. Shane, much respect to you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Any topics that you all think, drop them in the chat. Other than that, I'm gonna say this to you. This is always a pleasure for me. And I know that this world of work can be tough sometimes, but we're here to make the world of work a better place. We're here to have an impact on people's lives in ways that they've never been impacted before. So I want you to go out there and make sure you do great things. When you need to get some of that energy back, you always welcome to come home. You always welcome to come right here. Come on home and let's talk about it, y'all. Let's talk about it. You're not in this thing alone. You're never in this journey alone. I'm here walking with you. So let's walk that path together. So on that note, I see, let's see, stats to track team improvements. Yeah, definitely that could be something we talk about. And yes, I appreciate you sharing, definitely. On that note, you all, this has been a great session. I appreciate every single one of you all. Next week, I don't know what the topic is going to be. I'm thinking about, you know what we'll talk about next week? Since we talked about the sprint review, I would like to talk about the sprint retro, but I like to talk about my retro. I'll give you my exact retro, and sometimes I give it out in class. So next week, I'll talk to you about the things that I do within a retro, and then we go from there. And then we'll start talking about things like how to measure improvements, conflicts on a team, and how to address them, and then other things like Chat GPT. So I'm gonna say to you all, hey, I appreciate you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I will see you next week. So, peace. Make sure you have an amazing week. Okay? Don't let nobody spoil it for you whatsoever. You do that because greatness is within you. I'll see you on this journey. Have a good one.